The sun burned gently above the sleepy village of Aboabo, where red earth roads twisted through fields of cassava and cocoa. In a modest compound at the edge of the village, 17-year-old Amma sat hunched over her textbooks. Bright, curious, and determined, she was the pride of her school and the hope of her widowed mother. Her dream was simple: to earn a scholarship to the university in Accra and one day become a doctor. But dreams in Aboabo often bowed to survival. Amma's teacher had recommended her as a private tutor for Kwaku, the son of Mr. Obeng, the wealthiest cocoa farmer in the area. Kwaku had failed his exams and, with another attempt coming, Mr. Obeng was desperate to see improvement. Amma wasn't thrilled by the assignment. She'd heard Kwaku was proud and difficult. But the pay was good and her mother didn't hesitate. "It's just tutoring," she'd said. "You'll be back home before the sun sets." Amma's first visit to the Obeng compound was tense. Kwaku sat beneath a large mango tree in the yard, arms folded, expression unreadable. He barely looked at her as she introduced herself. "You're the genius girl, right?" he muttered. Amma ignored the sarcasm, opened her notebook and got to work. If she noticed the way he glanced at her when he thought she wasn't looking, she didn't show it. Tutoring sessions under the mango tree became routine. Kwaku, initially cold and sarcastic, slowly softened. He didn't always understand the lessons, but Amma's patient explanations, drawn in the dirt or acted out with mangoes, broke through his resistance. They laughed over his terrible math skills, debated literature, and sometimes sat in comfortable silence when the heat became too much. Amma learned that Kwaku wasn't just a spoiled rich boy. He had lost his mother 2 years ago, and since then he'd withdrawn from school and friends. His father, busy managing cocoa exports, treated him more like a business investment than a son. "He wants me to pass because it's good for his name, not because he cares what I want," Kwaku confessed one humid afternoon. Amma didn't say anything, but her hand rested gently on his for a moment, grounding him. Their connection grew in quiet, unspoken ways. Kwaku began arriving early, brushing off his chair before she came. Amma caught herself smiling when he made a silly joke. Still, they said nothing about what was clearly blooming between them. In a village where girls were expected to marry young and boys were sent to manage land, love was rarely given space to grow. Underneath the mango tree, however, time stood still. With falling leaves and the scent of ripe fruit around them, Amma and Kwaku were just two teenagers learning more than books could ever teach. Amma's mother began to notice the change. Amma lingered on her way home, eyes dreamy, lips humming songs she hadn't sung since childhood. One evening, as she washed yam by the fire, her mother sat beside her. "You look different," she said. "Is something bothering you?" Amma shook her head, but the heat climbed her cheeks. "It's nothing, Mama." But it was something. She couldn't stop thinking about Kwaku, how he laughed with his whole body now, how he asked about her dreams. One afternoon, when she mentioned wanting to become a doctor, he'd looked her dead in the eye and said, "You will. You're the smartest person I know." No one had ever said that to her before. Meanwhile, Mr. Obeng had noticed the change in his son too. "Your marks are improving," he said, scanning a test paper. "That girl is doing a good job. Maybe I'll hire her full-time." Kwaku didn't respond. He didn't want her as an employee, he wanted her near because he missed her when she wasn't there. But he didn't know how to say it, not when everything around him was about duty and pride. Amma, too, felt trapped between emotion and expectation. Her future depended on her studies, on getting out of Aboabo. Falling in love was not part of the plan. And yet, her heart fluttered with every shared laugh and every minute they sat beneath that tree. The rains came early that year, turning the red roads to mud and washing the dust from the mango leaves. Amma continued her lessons with Kwaku under the tree, now dampened but still sheltering. They brought a stool for her and a bench for him, and when the rains were too heavy, they sat in the unused storeroom by the cocoa barn, lantern between them, words tumbling between equations and shy glances. One rainy afternoon, Kwaku handed Amma a paper folded many times. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a pencil sketch, crude but unmistakably her. Her eyes, wide and thoughtful, stared back from the page. She looked up at him, speechless. "It's not perfect," he said, "but I wanted you to have it. It's how I see you." That evening she tucked the drawing under her mattress, heart pounding. She didn't know what would come next, but something had shifted. The air between them had changed, charged with feeling that no study session could mask. Amma didn't know what to say. Her chest ached with something tender and terrifying. For the first time she let her fingers linger on his. "Thank you," she whispered. And yet, as the weeks passed, a quiet dread grew inside her. The closer they became, the more fragile her future seemed. Love, she feared, was a detour she couldn't afford. Word spreads fast in small villages, and whispers about Amma and Kwaku had begun. At the market, older women made passing remarks. At church, eyes lingered longer than usual. Even her schoolmates giggled behind cupped hands. Amma did her best to ignore them, but the weight of gossip was heavier than it seemed. Kwaku, on the other hand, didn't seem to care. He brought her roasted plantain during lessons, picked flowers and placed them beside her notes, and once carved her initials on the mango tree's trunk. To him, the world had narrowed to just the two of them: lessons, laughter, and lingering touches. But Amma's mother was not blind. One evening she confronted her daughter. "You're walking a dangerous road," she warned. "That boy is not for you. His father will never allow it." "I know," Amma whispered. She had no illusions. The divide between their worlds was wide. Mr. Obeng might tolerate her as a tutor, but never as a daughter-in-law. Despite the warnings, Amma couldn't pull away. Every moment with Kwaku felt like breathing after drowning. He made her laugh, made her feel seen, made her believe she was more than just a bright girl from a poor family. Still, ambition tugged at her sleeve. Her scholarship exams loomed, and distraction could cost her everything. She stood at a crossroads, uncertain which dream to follow, the one in her heart or the one in her books. When the scholarship results were posted on the school's rusted notice board, a crowd gathered. Amma pushed through the murmuring students, her heart pounding. Her name sat at the top of the list. First position, scholarship awarded. She gasped, hands trembling as reality settled in. She had done it. She was going to Accra. The news spread like wildfire. Her teachers congratulated her, classmates cheered, and her mother cried tears of joy and relief. For Amma, the world suddenly opened. The future she'd fought for, prayed for, was finally within reach. But when she told Kwaku, his face didn't light up the way she'd hoped. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "So that means you'll be leaving soon," he said quietly. Amma nodded. "In a few weeks." The silence that followed was thick with what neither dared to say. They sat beneath the mango tree like they always had, but the laughter was gone. For the first time, the future was no longer a shared path. "I'm happy for you," Kwaku finally said. "You deserve it. More than anyone." Amma reached for his hand, but it felt like sand slipping through her fingers. They both knew that time was no longer their friend. And though the sky was clear that afternoon, everything felt like rain. Just as Amma began preparing for Accra, a stranger arrived at her home. He was well-dressed, with a calm voice and confident smile. His name was Kojo, and he brought an offer from his family in a neighboring town. They had heard of Amma's intelligence and good character. Kojo was looking for a wife, and he was ready to pay generously. Amma's mother, worn by years of scraping by, was stunned. The bride price would cover their debts, fix the leaking roof, and even provide seed money for a small business. "This is a blessing," she said, eyes misty. "A good man and money we've never dreamed of." Amma was horrified. "But I'm going to school." Her mother's voice tightened. "You can study later. Marriage first. This kind of offer doesn't come twice." That night, Amma sat alone outside, tears sliding down her face as she clutched the drawing Kwaku had given her. Everything she had worked for was slipping away, not because she failed, but because life in a boabo didn't reward ambition without sacrifice. She didn't tell Kwaku right away. She didn't know how. She wasn't even sure what choice she had. Kwaku heard the news from a farmhand. Furious, he stormed into Amma's compound, heart thudding. She met him at the gate, eyes red and voice small. "Is it true?" he asked. "You're marrying someone else?" Tears brimmed in her eyes. "They need the money, Kwaku. We don't have a choice." "But what about Accra? What about us?" She turned away, unable to look at him. "Dreams don't feed families." He stepped closer, gripping her hand. "Then let me talk to my father. I'll get the money. We'll find a way." Amma shook her head. "Even if he agrees, it won't change anything. Your world isn't mine." Silence hung between them. The mango tree swayed in the wind, leaves rustling like whispers of all they wouldn't say. Amma wanted to fall into his arms, to beg him to take her away. But reality loomed large and cruel. "I love you," Kwaku said at last, his voice breaking. "I love you too," she whispered. "But sometimes, love isn't enough." The morning of the introduction ceremony, Amma stood by the window, dressed in Kent, gold on her wrists, her face beautiful and empty. Kojo's family had arrived, bearing gifts and wide smiles. Her mother buzzed with nervous excitement, grateful to the gods for answered prayers. But Amma's heart was somewhere else, under a mango tree, in laughter shared, in sketches drawn by a shy boy with sad eyes. Suddenly outside voices rose. Kwaku had come, not with money or promises but with his father. Mr. Obeng, silent for years, stepped forward and addressed Amma's mother directly. "Let the girl go to school. I'll sponsor her. That's what she needs, not marriage." The compound froze. Kojo's family bristled. Amma's mother was speechless. But Amma? She felt light for the first time in weeks. Tears streamed as she walked away from the gathering toward Kwaku, who stood quietly by the gate. She didn't speak, she just took his hand. The mango tree still stood tall, roots deep, leaves wide. Their love had been tested, battered by duty and money, but in the end, it had survived. And as Amma boarded the bus to Accra weeks later, Kwaku handed her a new sketch of a girl standing tall, eyes toward the horizon with a mango tree in the background. Her story was just beginning.